Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I actually want to start today with a little scenario. Picture this. You walk into a coffee shop. It really doesn't matter where. It could be Seattle, could be Seoul, Berlin, wherever.
Right.
You order your flat white, you open up your laptop, and you just kind of tune into the music playing over the speakers. It's always that global chill playlist, right?
Yeah, I know the exact one you mean. It's vaguely electronic, maybe has a little tropical house beat going on in the background.
Exactly. And occasionally you hear something, quote unquote cultural, like a sample of a sitar or a snippet of a West African kora.
Or a vocal line in a language you don't even recognize.
Right. And on the surface, it feels incredibly international. It makes you feel like we're more connected than ever. But if you actually listen, really listen to the bones of the music, does it feel different? Or does it all just kind of feel the same?
It feels the same because, well, structurally it is the same. What you're describing is what sociologists would call structural flattening. We have this illusion of diversity because of the surface level decorations, the samples, the languages, but the underlying architecture is almost entirely Western.
So it's kind of like we're all living in the exact same house, but we're just painting the walls different colors.
That is a perfect analogy. And that brings us right to the big question we're tackling today. In a hyper-connected world, is international music actually international? Or is it really just Western music wearing a different hat?
To answer that, we are diving deep into the work of a composer who is, frankly, absolutely obsessed with this problem, Reza Vali.
Yes, Reza Vali.
He's an Iranian-American composer born in 1952 in Qazvin, Iran. And let me tell you, his solution isn't to just add more flavor to the mix.
Yeah.
He wants to tear down the house and rebuild the foundation from scratch.
He really does. And we are working from a fascinating stack of research today to explore this. Primarily, we're looking at a really dense, brilliant academic paper by Ahsan Tafakol, which analyzes Vali's structural approach.
Plus, we have this incredibly detailed structural analysis poster of his works, specifically looking at his concerto for Persian A and his Sega, double concerto.
Right, and the central concept we're unpacking from all of these sources is something Vali calls perso-centrist pluralism.
Oh, I know. I know that sounds like a heavy academic mouthful.
It does, but stick with us because it's actually a very practical, almost architectural idea. It's about rethinking the modern orchestra not as a dictator of sound, but as a site for genuine philosophical dialogue where nobody has to whisper.
I love that framing. So let's start with the man himself to get some context. Reza Vali isn't some outsider just throwing rocks at the classical music establishment, is he?
No, not at all. And that's exactly what makes his critique so devastating. He is the establishment. He studied at the Vienna Academy of Music, which is basically the Vatican of the Western classical tradition.
Yeah, you don't get much more traditional than that.
Exactly. He got his PhD at the University of Pittsburgh. He's a professor at Carnegie Mellon. He knows the rules of Western counterpoint and harmony better than most Western composers do.
So he's a total insider. He speaks the language fluently.
Fluently. But intellectually and spiritually, his roots are deeply embedded in the Persian modal system. So he's standing in this very unique intercultural position. And from that vantage point, he sees a dilemma that most people just completely ignore.
Let's unpack that dilemma for a second, because if I'm a composer from Iran or China or India and I want to write a symphony, what's the actual problem? The orchestra is sitting right there. Just write music for it.
It's just not that simple. Historically, you were forced into a binary choice. It's like a trap with two doors. Door number one is assimilation.
Which is the classic when in Rome approach.
Precisely. You want to write a symphony? Great. You have to use the sonata form. You use Western functional harmony, tonic, dominant resolution. You tune your instruments to the Western scale. You essentially write a German or French piece of music, but you just happen to be Iranian. You completely suppress your own cultural grammar to fit their tool.
Okay, so that means losing your identity entirely. What is behind door number two?
Door number two is exoticism. This is the tourist approach. You write a Western piece, but you sprinkle a little local flavor on top.
Ah, okay. So this is the global chill playlist problem we were talking about earlier.
It is exactly that. It's using your culture as a spice. You might add a melody that sounds vaguely oriental, or you throw in a specific native drum to give it a pop of color, but structurally, it's still completely Western. It's like putting curry powder on a hamburger and calling it authentic Indian cuisine. It's ornamental. Yeah. It is not structural.
And Vali looks at these two options, assimilation and exoticism, and essentially says, I reject the entire premise.
Right. In his treatise, which is called Return to the Origins, he argues that what we casually call international music is a total illusion. He says it's actually a colonial construct.
Because it forces everyone to play by one set of rules.
Yes, because if the international standard requires everyone to adopt Western tuning and Western rhythm, it is systematically excluding the tonal systems and the modal grammars of other traditions.
And he's specifically talking about the Persian Dostka or Magam system here, right, based on the poster?
Yes, and his point is radical but undeniable. If the orchestra literally cannot play the notes that define your culture, then the orchestra isn't international. It's a closed loop.
So he invents a third way. This persocentrist pluralism. Let's really break those words down. Persocentrist makes it sound like he just wants to flip the script and make Persian music the boss. Is he just swapping one dictator for another?
No, and that is a crucial distinction made in Tawakkul's paper. In this context, centering doesn't mean dominating. It means shifting the vantage point. Vali is asking, what happens if we treat the Persian musical system, its logic, its tuning, its whole philosophy, as the center of gravity for the piece?
So instead of the Persian elements orbiting the Western orchestra starts orbiting the Persian logic.
Exactly. He is not doing fusion. Fusion implies melting things together until they're just this blurry, indistinguishable mix. Vali is doing something entirely different. He treats the Western orchestra, the violins, the cellos, the brass section as a hyper-instrument.
A hyper-instrument. I love that term. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, imagine the orchestra is a giant computer. Usually it runs on Windows. Vali uninstalls Windows and installs a Persian operating system. The hardware is exactly the same. It's still a violin made of wood and strings. But the software, the foundational logic driving it, is totally different.
Okay, that sounds really cool metaphorically. But physically, how do you actually do that? Because I play a little piano and I know that the keys are physically where they are. You can't just think a different note into existence.
You've hit on the biggest technical hurdle. The sources refer to this specific problem as the 12-tone prison.
The 12-tone prison. Let's dig into this. Why is the piano a prison?
Because of how it's tuned. Western music for the last few hundred years has standardized around something called equal temperament, or 12 TET. You take an octave and you slice it into 12 mathematically identical semitones.
It's very rational. Very uniform.
It's incredibly convenient, sure. It allows you to play in any key without retuning your instrument, but it comes at a massive cost. It flattens difference, it completely eliminates the expressive hierarchies found in natural acoustic tuning systems.
And this is where the Persian system clashes head-on with the piano.
Right. The Persian Dostka system relies on intervals that simply do not exist on a standard piano. The sources mention two specific microtones, Sori and Koran.
Sori and Koran. So these are notes that live in the cracks between the piano keys.
Yes. A Koran, for example, is roughly a quarter tone flat, but not exactly. It's a very specific organic inflection. To a Western ear trained exclusively on a piano, if you heard a Koran out of context, you might think, oh, that instrument is out of tune. But in Persian music, that specific pitch is where the emotion lives. That note is the soul of the mode.
So if Vali writes a melody that desperately needs a Koran, and the orchestra plays a standard Western flat note instead?
He loses the meaning entirely. It would be like trying to recite a beautiful poem, but you're strictly forbidden from using vowels. You lose the essence. So Vali realized that to write true Persian music for an orchestra, he literally had to break the orchestra out of the 12-tone prison.
And this is where the story takes this amazing sci-fi turn.
Yeah.
He didn't just write new sheet music. He invented a completely new digital interface, the arganoon.
Yes, the arganoon. It's named after an ancient instrument, but it's actually a highly sophisticated digital interface and a computer plugin.
So he's basically using computers to travel back in time.
In a way, yes. The arganoon allows electronic keyboards and synthesized orchestral sounds to produce those highly specific Persian microtones with absolute mathematical accuracy.
That is fascinating to me because usually we think of technology as the thing that standardizes everything. You know, auto-tune snaps your pitch to the nearest perfect Western note. Spotify normalizes all the volume. Tech flattens things.
Exactly. We usually use tech to iron out all the wrinkles. Vali is using technology to put the wrinkles back in. He's using the arganoon to restore acoustic truth. He's abandoning the artificial manufactured perfection of the 12-tone system to reclaim the natural diversity of the harmonic series.
It's like he's hacking the system to let the ghosts back into the machine.
That is a beautiful way to put it. And the crazy thing is, he doesn't stop at tuning. Once he fixes the pitches, he also completely rethinks the concept of time.
Time. How can time be different? A beat is a beat.
Not in music philosophy. This is actually one of the deepest parts of Tavakkal's analysis. Western classical music, think of Beethoven or Mahler's narrative. It is highly teleological.
Teleological meaning it has a specific goal it's driving toward.
Right. It's always going somewhere. It has a plot. You have exposition, then conflict, climax, and finally resolution. It's linear. It drags you forward by the ear. You are always consciously or subconsciously listening for what happens next.
It's an action movie for your ears.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But Persian music operates on what they call ritual time. It is cyclical. It is contemplative. It isn't trying to sprint to the finish line. It's trying to inhabit a state of being.
So if I'm listening to a piece in ritual time, I shouldn't be sitting there waiting for the beat to drop.
No, you should be dwelling in the present moment. And to achieve this with a Western orchestra, which, remember, is an engine built specifically for drama and linear storytelling, Vali uses a structural technique called mosaicism.
Like actual mosaic tiles.
Yes. Think of a Persian carpet, or the incredibly intricate geometric tiling you'd see on a mosque in Isfahan. When you look at a carpet, you don't ask, how does this end? You don't look for a climax. You look at the pattern. You see the symmetry, the rotation, the repetition. It creates this sense of geometric infinity.
So Vali literally constructs his music out of static blocks.
Correct. Instead of developing themes the way a sonata does, where a melody starts small, grows, changes, fights with other melodies, and gets liquidated, he uses static blocks or tiles of sound. He juxtaposes them side by side.
So structurally, it's not a river flowing aggressively to the sea. It's more like walking through a grand cathedral.
Or exploring a sprawling palace. You walk from one room to another. The rooms themselves are static, but your internal experience of them changes as you move through the space. And the macro structure of his work is often modeled after the Nobat.
The Nobat. I remember the poster refers to this as the ancient royal compound form.
Yes, the Nobat. It's an ancient musical form used in royal courts that is inherently cyclic. It's designed to create a profound sense of return. So the listener is invited to sit inside a rotating architectural structure rather than being dragged along a straight timeline. It fundamentally changes the psychology of listening.
I really want to make this concrete for you listening at home. We have a great case study in the sources, the Concerto for Persian Knee. Can you paint a picture of what this actually sounds like in the room?
It sounds like absolutely nothing else you've ever heard. First, you have the knee itself. It's a Persian bamboo flute. It's one of the oldest instruments in the world. The sound is very breathy, very fragile, but incredibly rich and complex overtones.
And traditionally, if you put a delicate flute in front of a massive 70-piece orchestra, the orchestra just plays very quiet chords in the background so you can actually hear the soloist.
Right, the standard backup band approach. Vali refuses to do that. He creates what the analysis calls modal micropolyphony.
Modal micropolyphony. Break that down for us.
Okay, imagine a dense swarm of bees or a shifting, thick cloud of smoke. You don't hear individual distinct voices, you hear a living texture. Vali uses the strings section and the brass to create this vibrating, continuous cluster.
So the violins aren't playing a catchy melody, they are physically becoming a texture.
They are acting as a sonic envelope. They are essentially simulating the acoustic properties of the ney, but at a massive orchestral scale. It's like the flute is a single voice, and the orchestra is the natural resonance of that voice echoing inside a giant cave.
The orchestra essentially expands the physical footprint of the solo instrument.
Exactly. They create a massive sound mass, and this static, vibrating mass creates that state of hall mentioned in the sources.
Hall. That's the spiritual state, right?
Yes. It's a profound state of ecstasy or deep spiritual contemplation. And to maintain that fragile state, the harmony cannot be moving around in Western functional progressions. It has to be drone-based. It anchors you to the earth.
And what about the rhythm? If we aren't marching to a standard 44 beat?
He uses complex additive rhythms, 58, 78. And this isn't arbitrary. It comes directly from Persian poetry, specifically the Ahruz system.
So the music literally follows the rhythm of human speech.
The rhythm of recited poetry, yeah. Patterns of long and short syllables. It creates this rolling, fluid, almost tidal feeling, which is entirely opposite to the rigid military counting of Western meter.
So just to recap where we are, we have a brand new tuning system, a completely different concept of time, a new orchestral texture, and a new rhythmic engine based on poetry. This isn't just a tweak, this is a complete teardown and rebuild.
It's a revolution in sound.
But I want to zoom out to the big soap here. Because reading through Tavakol's paper, the language gets pretty intense. He uses heavy words like decolonization and sovereignty. This isn't just about music theory anymore, is it?
No, it's deeply about power.
Explain that dynamic.
Well, think about the dynamics of globalization as we usually experience it. Usually it's a monologue. The West speaks and the rest of the world listens, or at best, they mimic. Even when Western institutions invite other cultures to the table, there's an unspoken rule. They say, you're welcome to join us, but you have to use our fork and knife. You have to speak our language. You have to tune to our piano.
It's a highly conditional invitation. Be diverse, but strictly within our pre-approved grid.
Exactly. And Vali is outright rejecting that condition. He's saying, I will build a space where the dialogue is actually epistemically equal. By forcing the Western orchestra to adopt Persian logic, he completely reverses the center-periphery dynamic.
He makes the Persian logic into the universal law of the piece.
Yes. The sources explicitly refer to Homi Bhabha's concept of the third space here.
The third space.
It's a really important post-colonial idea. It's a neutral meeting ground where distinct cultures can interact without one erasing or subsuming the other. It's a hybrid space, but a deeply respectful one. Vali's reimagined orchestra is that third space.
Because it's clearly not traditional Western music anymore. But it's not purely traditional Persian music either. I mean, a traditional knee player wouldn't normally have 50 violins droning behind them.
No, they wouldn't. It's something entirely new. The sources call this state plural equilibrium.
Plural equilibrium. That feels like the ultimate destination of all this work.
It's the ultimate vision. Vali is arguing that true universality isn't sameness. It isn't everyone drinking the exact same soda and listening to the exact same 12 standardized tones. It's a state of equilibrium where every culture can speak from its own center, using its own logic, and still be heard and understood.
It's a working model for how we can be modern without forgetting who we are.
And without ever needing to ask permission to be who we are.
It really makes you rethink that global chill playlist we started with. We so often settle for the easy, frictionless version of diversity, just the samples, the exotic flavors. But Vali shows us that real structural diversity is incredibly hard work. You literally have to rebuild the instrument. You have to learn an entirely new way of listening to time itself.
You have to accept that your standard isn't the only standard in the world.
That is the thing that really sticks with me from this entire deep dive. The realization that 12 T-T-T, the keys on the piano sitting in my living room, the tuning of every synthesizer and every pop song on the radio, isn't a biological fact of nature. It's just a choice.
It's a cultural worldview. A worldview that heavily prioritizes rationality, convenience, and uniformity over natural acoustic diversity.
And we've all just collectively mistaken it for the absolute truth.
We do that with a lot of things, don't we? We constantly mistake our local habits for universal laws.
And that is exactly the question I want to leave you with today. Reza Vali showed us that our standard musical tuning, which we thought was universal, is actually just a local habit that managed to conquer the world. So what other universal standards in your life and the technology you use and how you manage your time and your definitions of success are actually just local cultural habits that you've simply forgotten to question?
That is a very dangerous question to ask yourself.
The best ones always are. I want to give a huge thank you to the brilliant work of Ehsan Tavakol for the source material on this one. It's a dense read, but it will completely change how you hear the world.
It was an absolute pleasure unpacking it.
And thanks to you for listening. Keep those ears open, question your standards, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.